Deadside struck a deal to confront the Shadowman, while Sandra's brother prepared.
Hey everybody, this is Barry Adkins from Target Audience Magazine and Better Be Sharp here today with A Sound of Thunder to talk about their new album, Tales from the Deadside, based off of the Shadowman comics by Valiant. And I'm here with Nina and Josh from A Sound of Thunder. And I've got to ask, how did the Shadowman project come about?
We were at Baltimore Comic-Con, and we went to the guys at the Valiant booth, and we said, we would like to make an album based on one of your characters, and they said, okay.
Yeah, it was very, very spur of the moment. Like, we were just going to the convention as fans, and we walked up to the booth, and they had just relaunched the company within about a year at that time. So I was super hyped about everything they'd been publishing. They'd been putting out great books, and we just went up to them and were like, we want to do something with you.
And was this something that you guys have been spitballing amongst yourselves for a while? Let's go and like confront the guys at Valiant and.
Not really. We might have like mentioned it offhand once or twice, but
Yeah.
honestly, it was just kind of what the hell? Let's go talk to these guys. And the surprising thing and the cool thing was that we got right to their top brass immediately. Like they weren't just like, oh, these are just some fans, It's like their vice president of sales was at the booth at the Comic-Con, and he got us like immediately in touch with their licensing guy and the CEO and the CFO. So they're a very cool, down-to-earth company, good people to work with.
Now, did they? You gave them some music to start with, just to kind of show them that you were the real deal and that you were serious about this?
Yeah, Times Arrow had just come out, so. What happened was we gave Adam Freeman, their sales manager, a copy of Times Arrow and talked to him and shook hands and everything. And he was like, email me in a couple days and we'll have checked it out. And so we emailed him and he was like, oh, dude, I lost the CD. And so we ended up mailing them one of the Times Arrow box sets. And I think that impressed them even more because they were like, okay, now this band can do the music, but they also can do cool, packaging and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Your promotion is great for all of your Kickstarter rewards. So
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. And now you mentioned doing this at the Baltimore Comic-Con, and so I remember that I was volunteering for Otakon a few years back, and I met Nina there, and that was the same time I saw you guys play at a bar just a few blocks up the street.
Yep.
Great show.
Thank you.
Recommend go out and see these guys because they are going on tour here again soon. But how much has comics and animation and really the geek culture been a part of your lives growing up?
100% over here. Like, all of it, all of the nerd stuff, all the time. And where I come from, there isn't a lot of access to that kind of stuff, so I used to buy my comic books at the grocery store. And, like, I thought I was the only person that liked Star Wars in the whole world. So when I actually went to college, it kind of changed my life for the better because I found out that there's a whole world of nerds. And then I was able to go to more conventions and wear more costumes. And then when I joined this band, I found out that he was a nerd too, and it was, like, perfect.
Yeah, I think I was more of a casual comic book fan when I was younger. I still have my collection from when I was a kid, and it was, no more than 2 long boxes. But, just from the beginning, He-Man was the first thing I can remember, pretty much. And then it was G.I. Joe and Transformers, and comics came a little bit later. Star Wars, of course, Star Trek. And I think it's just been an influence on, one, wanting to tell stories through the music. And so not doing as much personal, angsty, introspective music.
Yeah, I hate that shit. I don't do that shit. I tell stories. And feelings are stupid.
And also definitely influenced the type of stories we want to tell. So science fiction, fantasy, historical stuff.
Murder.
Yeah, horror, for sure.
Well, that's great. And can you tell us a little bit about the Shadowman story? What drew you to Shadowman?
Well, I had been reading it. Nina also enjoys the Valiant titles, but I was the one in the band that had jumped on board with the company like right when they relaunched in 2012, and I had been getting all of their titles. And about the first 10 issues of Shadowman had come out, and we went up to Valiant and asked them about this album. And it's technically a superhero story, but it's very supernatural. Shadowman, the character, derives his powers from a voodoo spirit, and the locales that he's hanging out in are very metal adjacent. You know, he goes to the dead side, which is this kind of hell region where dead souls live, and
I think it's more like purgatory. I would call the dead side purgatory.
Yeah, the dead side, but it's a horror supernatural realm.
Yeah.
And then also, even in Earth, he's hanging out in graveyards and dealing with voodoo practitioners and
demons and shit.
And then it's based in New Orleans, which has the blues and jazz influence. The original version of Shadowman, the alter ego, Jack Boniface, was a jazz musician by trade. And the bluesy and jazziness kind of informed a little Black Sabbath flavor that we already had with the band. It basically, if you think of all of Valiant's big characters, like Exo Manowar and Harbinger and Shadowman, and what kind of music would go with each one, Shadowman was the one that just seemed like it would sound like us the most.
And speaking of that kind of New Orleans hoodoo, voodoo, jazz atmosphere, you have some guests on here. You have someone that does the voiceover, setting up the scene for everything, and you also have an incredible saxophone player on the song Pump Mambo.
Yes.
And so how did the decision to incorporate those kind of, you mentioned that Jack Boniface's, or Boniface, his alter ego is a saxophone player, so that kind of...
I just had, like, a light bulb went off because he's got the skull mask. Do you think the original Billy gave him that name because it's supposed to be Bonyface?
Ha! That's terrible.
Is that too dumb?
That's kind of dumb, but I can see it.
It sounds like maybe that was the original inspiration.
I can see that. That's really dumb and terrible, but yeah, probably.
We'll have to ask Dinesh, the CEO, about that. But the narrator, that idea actually came from our producer, Kevin Gutierrez. This was, one of the first concept records he had been on, and he said, look, if we're going to do a concept record, let's just go all in.
Yeah.
Go whole hog and make it 100% a concept record and do the narration and tie all the songs together. So that was down to him, and he found the narrator for us, who is actually from Nigeria, and so the accent is not a put-on or a voice actor. It's just a guy from Nigeria with a really cool voice doing the reading for us. And the saxophone is credited to Jack Boniface on the record with a little asterisk, because Jack played the saxophone in the original comics, and that was our nod to the old school fans. But the real player is named Robert Muncie, and he's a local guy here in D.C., and he's just a badass. I mean, the takes that you hear on the record were ripped improvisationally. There was no more than 2 or 3 takes, and he just came in and nailed it.
Now, I got to ask about that, because you guys kind of do a back and forth with the saxophone and the guitar solo. So was that something that you guys worked out in studio, or did you just take pieces of what he had done and kind of put your solo in the middle of it?
No, that was, he actually was not originally supposed to play over the guitar solo. He was supposed to play in the middle section, in the quieter section, and then the saxophone would fade out or stop when the guitar solo started. And like I said, he was just in there ripping through takes improvisationally, and he went through the middle, and the next solo, the section started, and he just kept going. And he was just so awesome. Kevin and I were there watching him record, and he blew our minds, and so we just decided to keep it.
Well, I think it turned out great. And Nina, I got to ask you, this is kind of the first album, I think, where, since it is a concept, you're kind of playing a character. And I know that you do some plays or musicals off on your own in your own time outside of the band. So how was it to transition from doing something on stage musically and then bringing a character to life actually in your songs?
I was not that big a transition because most of our songs tell a story, and most of the time I like to think that I'm playing a character. So it was very natural for me, I'd say. It's something that I enjoy doing more than me just being me.
I think she's in character more often than not.
Yeah.
Because Kill That Bitch is not really.
Yeah, it's not me. It's like the whole joke of Kill That Bitch was I was like, oh, what if I did a song where I'm the crazy one? Like, that was the whole point. So I love doing that kind of stuff.
Queen of Hell. Different character. And Elijah, she's playing the little girl that's tormented by the evil mother.
Yeah, so like I play a couple of characters in Elijah. I love doing that stuff. It's fun.
Well, I think it worked out really well here, too. And so the end of the album, not going to spoil it. Since I hadn't read the Shadowman comics, I know from some of your other interviews, you said the album covers the 3-year story arc of Shadowman before they kind of restarted it.
Yep.
So the Shadowman comics leave off on a cliffhanger of sorts, and so does the album, which saddened me a little bit.
Basically, in my mind, it ends after the Empire Strikes Back chapter.
Yeah.
It's like the darkest point.
Yeah.
So you said that in another interview that the Shadowman comics are going to restart the story, or at least continue a story arc next year.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you see the band pursuing a follow-up release to this Shadowman down the road to kind of give a little bit of closure, if there is any?
I think it would be a cool thing to do, but it would have to be at a point in the comics where we could have an actual ending. Because, you know, the thing with comic books is that they can go forever. And what was cool about this was that there was an end. So we could tell the whole story, and then that's it. But if we were to do it again, we'd have to do it from one point to another and find a good ending for the album.
Yeah,
and that might not be the end of the comic.
Yeah, we know we're going to have a good starting point because the Shadowman's actually coming back next month in November. He won't be in his own comic. He's going to appear in this book called Ninjak, but they're going in and they're going to find out what happened to him right after the end of our album. And it was in a pretty dark place. And it sounds like, from what they revealed, it's going to start in a cool place for more music. But like Nina said, the trick is, where does it end? Valiant hasn't run many series past 20 to 25 issues, so if they do this next run and it ends at a reasonable point with a natural ending and it's not a total downer ending, then I think we'd be in a good place to revisit it. And we have had people already telling us that they'd be interested in a sequel.
Well, I'd certainly be interested, so that's more. Now, you've used Kickstarter for your last few campaigns, and so I was kind of curious, one, why Kickstarter versus there's Indiegogo and Pledge Music as other crowdfunding or crowdsourcing outlets, and then how do you approach your ideas for like the rewards to get people interested?
Well, the thing I think we prefer Kickstarter as opposed to Indiegogo is that you can still take people's money if you don't reach your goal in Indiegogo. And to me, I'm like, well, if you don't reach your goal, how are you going to pay for all those things? Like, you still have to deliver things to people. How are you going to do that if you don't reach your goal? So that's why, like, Indiegogo is kind of a turnoff for me. And then Pledge Music doesn't show you how much money you've raised. So we want people to see, this is how much money we need, this is how much money we're going to raise.
Basically, in my mind, Kickstarter is to Indiegogo as the Transformers are to GoBots.
Yes.
And Kickstarter is like the original. I think people just have a better association with it. Pledge Music is weird. It looks more like a storefront when you go there, and more label bands use Pledge Music, and I think it's almost a way for the labels to try to hide the fact that they're not giving their bands enough money to make an album. But really, for us now, after having used Kickstarter a couple of times, the biggest thing is the registration hurdle, because we can direct message our fans that have supported the Kickstarters in the past, and when we do the next album, then they're already registered. because, even for people who are fans, sometimes taking the extra 3 minutes to go to a new site and set up a new login is just something that they'll say, oh, I'll do it later, and then they forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just easier, and we're comfortable with the way Kickstarter works, on the back end with running the shipping and keeping track of everything. So basically, at this point, it's worked for us, and we don't see a reason to change yet.
Now, how do you approach the reward system for Kickstarter? Now, you've had some great rewards. You've done the Time Zero box set with the shot glasses and the artwork and everything. You've done jerseys for A Sound of Thunder. You've got picture discs and things for vinyl and what have you. How do you approach, or how do you know what people are going to want?
Well, we try and think about what we would want. Like, if I was obsessed with a band, like, for example, Hammerfall, what would I want from Hammerfall? And
a giant hammer.
Yeah, I want a giant hammer, and I want, like, little miniatures of all of the guys in Hammerfall and Hector, and I'm like, well, we should do that for us. So we do what we would want for our fans. And that's a lot of stuff. So
we did try to do a Shadowman miniature on this one, but we couldn't get it together.
Yeah, no, that's coming. But keep on the lookout for miniatures, because that is coming. Like, Warhammer-sized miniatures are on the way. They will be there.
Take notice, Hammerfall.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the main thing is to not be like, what's something cheap that we can do that people will pay more for? Like,
yeah.
What's cool, what will people appreciate, and you can't worry about, I mean, a lot of the stuff is almost break even for us, but the main goal is, like,
what will people love? When
you get your Kickstarter package, it should be like Christmas morning.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I've seen people with, the little Zippo lights, and I'm like, oh, that's cool, but I don't think a lot of our fans would like that. What would our fans like? And it's usually stuff that we would like ourselves, so... a coffee table book full of, paintings of, like, evil shit. Yeah, well, we'd like that.
And do you guys have a big collection of other bands' kind of merchandise in the same fashion that you're doing? Did you get the inspiration from anywhere else?
Not so much. There's been a couple of bands that do cool things. Like Powerwolf did recently a really cool box set. Ghost did a cool box set. They had, like, the Papa Emeritus blood plug, and that's, like, super sweet. We'll do that eventually with Jesse. But stuff like that. That's very inspiring.
Yeah, but we do. I mean, I have other special editions from other bands here, but I think we've tried to do our own thing.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't seen a band do a vinyl LP book like the one that we did. And I haven't seen anybody do a comic book, like the Book of Death comic that we put out with the new album. So, and a part of it is the challenge of trying to think of something new every time, So now I don't know what we're going to do next time. Now we've done a box set, and we've done the deluxe LP book, and we've done the picture discs and comics, and so, next time we might have to be a working time machine.
It'll be a something.
Now, what's amazing about A Sound of Thunder and this album in particular is that you guys are unsigned. Not to say that there hasn't been record label interest in you, but yet recently you guys have ended up with this album on the debut charts alongside bands like Ghost and even the Scorpions. So, what do you give that kind of success?
Our fans.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's word of mouth. It's the classic, people like yourself. Honestly, we're talking here, and, if it wasn't for people like you with, either it's people with blogs or just talking about us on Facebook or smaller websites, because we still haven't been in Revolver or, any of those big rock or metal magazines. They won't touch us because we're not on a label and we haven't paid them for advertising. So it's really all about word of mouth and
going on tour to little tiny towns that nobody's ever heard of, and we might get like 1 or 2 fans out of that, but those 2 fans will talk to their friends, and eventually word will spread. So that's why, and I book all of our shows myself, so that can be difficult, but
I think we've also been lucky that we've had a pretty good run of 4 albums in a row pretty quickly to help build the reputation,
Yeah.
So we haven't put out our clunker yet. We'll see.
And hopefully you...
Yeah, hopefully not.
Yeah.
Next one will be the shitty cash-in album.
Well, you do have the album of covers that you guys did, and you even released a kind of bonus covers EP for the Kickstarter backers. So I want to ask about that. That included covers of Dio and I believe it was Deep Purple. And you got some great guests from Rainbow, Raven, Benedictium. So how do you end up working with people like that on these kind of projects?
We knew them like before. Like Veronica's a friend of mine. I've known Veronica since like 2009. I met her at Flight of the Valkyries in St. Paul, and we've been friends ever since. With Raven, John Gallagher actually lives near us, and our producer Kevin is also their producer. So Kevin kind of he put us on a date, and we met him, and he's super fun. So he works with us sometimes because we're friends. And as for Rainbow, I don't know.
Yeah, Tony Carey, I've just been a fan of. He's been doing, solo work. He was only in Rainbow for a couple of years, and I've just followed his solo career. And, he's independent like us now. And, when I want to buy his new CD, I just email him. And so we got right in touch with him and sent him the work mix of our cover, Death Alley Driver, and he was like, yeah, sure, it sounds like fun. So, that's not a big secret to it. It's just ask.
Yeah.
Well, it's great that you guys can reach out to people like that or have connections and can get these other names to play with you. Now, you mentioned booking your own tour dates. So you guys do have a November kind of southeastern swath coming up. So how do you end up actually saying, well, we're going to play the Southeast now? Because I know you guys kind of came across, I think you ended up in California over here, but I missed you.
Yeah.
And that was unfortunate for me, good for everybody else. How do you guys end up, say, let's go down through Texas and then come back?
Well, it's basically, okay, so we have a gig in Orlando that is booked by our friend Camden Cruz. So we're like, okay, we're going to Orlando. What do you guys think about extending this, tour if I can get us a show in Texas? Because we have a bunch of fans that are always asking us to go to Texas. So I'm like, okay, well, let me see if I can make it happen. And then what I do is I go to this website called Indie on the Move, which is a website that has a list of all the venues in every state, and you can narrow it down by the venues that actually allow metal. And then I find all 5 of those venues and email them and call them and send them Facebook messages, and the first one to actually respond to me is usually the one that I will book. So that is my process, and then what I have to do is I have to make sure that each city or each venue is within 6 to 7 hours of the next one driving. So I think the furthest one that we have right now is going from Austin to Oklahoma City, because I literally couldn't find any other venue within, a good distance of Austin. I couldn't get Dallas. I couldn't get anything else. So I was like, oh, okay, let me try, Kansas City.
So we're going to the middle of nowhere.
So we're going to the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma City, to play.
Oklahoma.
But we have friends there. We have this band called the Angelical Tears, and they haven't played in 2 years, and they've been looking forward to playing again. So this actually worked out really nicely because now we can play a gig with them, and they can bring all of their fans that have been waiting to see them for 2 years, and we get to leech off of their fans, and it all works out.
Wonderful. Now, being an unsigned band, do you find it harder to get people to kind of respond back to these venues and go, hey, listen, we're coming through, let us play?
Yes, absolutely. So I have to write this whole spiel about how I'm like, hey, we're coming by, and we have a bunch of fans in the area that really want to see us. Also, we were on Billboard. Also, we just released an album. Please, please, please call me back. I would really appreciate it.
I think it's a little easier now that we've been on Billboard twice.
It's not.
And,
he says that it's not.
No.
No, not at all.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about.
He doesn't. No, it's not hard. It's not easy at all to get people to answer me back. Usually I have to find some roundabout way of finding the person in charge. So I'll be like, I'll message the place, and then I'll look on their Facebook page, and I'll see who's the person that's on their Facebook page all the time. Oh, that's the manager. And then I'll message the manager, like, directly, and he might message me back. But, yeah, that's usually how it works out.
Well, I hope it gets easier. I hope this is a very successful Southeastern run, and everyone that's in the Southeast, be sure to go to asoundofthundermusic.com.
Sound of Thunder Band.
Yes.
asoundofthunderband.com, I'm sorry.
Yep.
And check out where they're going to be and drive hundreds of miles if you're out of the way and go see them.
Yes, please, especially in Mississippi, because I only know a couple people there.
Are you guys playing, I haven't looked, are you guys playing around New Orleans, especially with this new album and its kind of Delta vibe?
Believe me, I tried. I literally messaged and emailed every single venue in New Orleans, and I was so close, but everything was already booked. So, there's like one really known for heavy metal bar in New Orleans, and everybody's like, you should play there, you should play there. They were booked for every day that we could have gone there. So, no. However, we will be going to New Orleans soon, and I won't say exactly when, and I won't say with whom, but it is going to happen in the new year.
Wonderful. I did want to ask one more thing, because you guys have incorporated a few songs so far from the new album into your live set, right?
Yes.
Now, is there a plan, like other people that might have concept albums, to do the entire thing in one show?
Yes, when Prog Power invites us to play their events.
If we ever play Prog Power, we'll play the whole thing.
And asked us to play our concept album exclusively in its entirety.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think that the pacing of the album would be right for a concert necessarily, because of the dark vibe of the story. There's a real dark vibe of the album, and there's not a lot of fast songs because they just didn't serve the story. So I think for a concert, it might even be a little boring to go an hour without more fast material. But right now we're playing 4 songs out of the 10, but we're playing 2 of the longer ones, so it's closer to half the album that we're playing out. And I could see maybe adding 1 or 2 more, but that would probably be about it.
Okay. Now, I did want to ask you about one song, just to figure out from my own curiosity whether or not this was kind of a tongue-in-cheek moment. For Can't Go Back, it says, pretty much it seems like you're saying once you go black, you don't go back.
I love that idea. I didn't even think of that. You're amazing. I'm using that from now on. I am literally going to use that in our stage show from now on. That is fantastic. Thank you.
Oh.
No, that was not part of it, but now it is. That is great.
Yeah.
That's almost that's even better than Tales from the B-side, which is what we should have called our
Pleasure Slave,
Pleasure
the CD
Slave
should have
CD.
been called Tales from the B-side.
Yeah, we didn't even think of that.
No, the nobody's mentioned this yet, but the chorus lyrics from Can't Go Back are a direct nod to the Shadowman symbol. To step into the doorway, and that's the symbol. So that's the one song on the album that's dedicated, it's like the hero song for Shadowman.
Right. But man, I love that. That's even better.
But also, once you go black, you can never go back.
It's true.
Left my small mark onto the Sound of Thunder legacy.
Now make a YouTube video with a bunch of Tay Diggs footage edited in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris will like that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of sad that Jesse's not there, because I did want to apologize, because when I did my review of the album, which, once again, I think is stellar, I only did one listen through, and I made that mention at the beginning of the review, and I said, while the bass and drums are very strong, I felt like the bass didn't deviate as much from the guitar as on some of the previous albums. It didn't have as much of its own flavor. And then I listened to it a few more times leading up to this, and I'm like, I feel I need to redact that, because I feel that Jesse really does have kind of a presence there that...
I agree with you. I did notice that line in your review, because I feel like Jesse on this album came the farthest of the 4 of us I mean, there are just certain parts, you know, especially on Children of the Dark, right from the beginning of the album, where he's just going off. I mean, there were parts where I had to match my guitar solo to what he was doing because he got so crazy. But yeah, I actually feel like he's gotten better as a soloistic bass player and breaking off from the rhythms more.
He's grown.
And so, you know, I think the last album, Chris was like probably the one that had come the farthest, and on this one, I would say Jesse gets the VIP.
We're all very proud of him.
The boy done good.
The boy done good.
Well, just let him know that I apologize, and good job. Keep moving forward.
We will. He'll love to hear that.
Yeah. Now, for the live shows, and I'm gonna end this shortly because I know you guys have something else coming up, and my wife wants me to help her out with some errands. For the live shows, how are you going to do the kind of well, I guess since you're not doing the entire album, it won't matter as much. But for the songs that you guys do live, do you guys use the introduction kind of like on a sound tape?
No. Nope. We're doing completely free of backing tapes or pre-recorded anything. And all, you know, the songs, even though the story was written, you know, as one piece and we knew that the songs were going to fit together, they were still all written separately. And, you know, some of them were not, like Deadside and Tremble were not originally written for this album anyway. Tremble was supposed to be a third chapter in the Elijah story.
Okay. And
Deadside was just a jam that we had. It was actually one of the few jams that we captured on video and is on our YouTube channel. And you can hear us say, like, well, that'll be on album 6, and we beat it by one album because it ended up on album 5. But yeah, I think they all stand on their own. And so, you know, one thing about our band is that we've kind of become known for having more production on the albums, more harmony vocals and keys and guitar overdubs. And then when you see us live, it's a little bit different. It's more stripped down, but I think there's more energy. Mm-hmm. And basically, we just try and tear everybody's faces off when we play live.
And let me see. I had something, I lost it, so I'll just go to the last question I was going to end with. Speaking of comics and nerd culture, geek culture, and conventions, what are some of the movies you've loved this year or are looking forward to?
Ooh.
Crimson Peak.
Crimson Peak was my number 2 favorite movie. Number 1 was Mad Max. Mad Max. And of course Star Wars is coming, so that's probably going to end up being my number 1, but definitely those are my top 3. However, I am going to watch Deathgasm this Saturday for Halloween, during a Halloween party, so that might make it on my list. But seriously, like Crimson Peak and Mad Max, c'est magnifique. Perfect.
And Josh?
I would say I flipped her first 2. Crimson Peak I think I liked a little bit more than Mad Max, just because I thought it was beautifully shot. And Mad Max probably second. And yeah, I assume Star Wars will be in there somewhere.
And you'll watch Deathgasm this Saturday with us.
Sure.
Trust me. Just trust me.
But yeah, Crimson Peak was amazing. It's just cool, very cool story, and just beautiful looking. Mm-hmm.
I gotta admit, I haven't heard of Crimson Peak, so now I'm gonna have to go look it up.
What? It's a new Del Toro film. Dude, it has Jessica Chastain, and she's awesome. You're going to love it.
I'm gonna go look it up. So, everyone, check out soundofthunderband.com, and definitely check out the new album Tales from the Deadside, which currently is available for $4 digitally.
Yes.
From the Bandcamp page. So check that out. Get your fill of Shadowman and pick up some Valiant comics to check out the animated story whenever you can. Do you guys have anything you'd like to announce or let your fans know?
Please come see us in all of our tour dates, because we've never been to a couple of these states. We've never been to Texas, Mississippi, or Oklahoma. So we would really appreciate it if anybody even near those areas, I'm talking like 100-mile radius, I don't care, drive all day, come see us so that we don't play to an empty room. We'd love it.
I think you guys need to start a Sound of Thunder caravan in the Mad Max style and just like have these people going across from show to show.
I love this idea. Just need to get an old junker from
Yeah.
Craigslist and tear it apart. I love this idea.
You can tie Josh up to the front of the van.
That would be Jesse.
That would be Jesse, would be the Doof Warrior. Josh would be a Morton Joe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Nina and Josh, very much for doing this, and I look forward to hearing your next album, whichever number you're on now. It's probably different than the one you're actually writing.
It's like 10,000.
Yeah.
And just the best of luck to both of you and the rest of the guys for A Sound of Thunder's future.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
All right. You guys have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Barry.
Bye-bye.
Focus